every time I went in, I figured I'd have cancer because my family is full of it. Like, we have the worst gene pool ever.
Hi, welcome back to Let Me Ask You Something, the weekly podcast where I, MD Pittman, talk to everyday ordinary people about something extraordinary in their lives. Now, this week I talk with DC Spaar. She is an author of some children's books, a series of children's books, and she is a breast cancer survivor. So we talk a little bit about her journey from being a breast cancer survivor to being a published author and what's next in her life. So without further ado, here's my conversation with DC Spaar.
All right, and we are live. We are here with DC Spaar, Danielle or Danny. She doesn't have a preference. She is a children's author, middle grade, young adult, or I'm sorry, not young adult, middle grade or younger. And she's also a breast cancer survivor, but she's got a lot of things going on. So let me ask you something, Danielle. When did you get diagnosed with breast cancer?
That was 2016, and I was 39 years old. So even though my mom had just gotten done breast cancer in 2012, they didn't want me to have a mammogram. They were like, nope, you're too young. And it wasn't until a workmate pretty much forced me to go in.
Isn't that weird that if it's genetic, they said you're too young still?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I was worried about insurance covering it, so I didn't go in. And she's like, look, I have this free get a mammogram. She gave me this coupon thing. And I was,
so buy one, get one or something?
Yeah, exactly, right? And it was like this little postcard thing. She's like, go and get it done, because what was happening is mine wasn't the normal, oh, you found a lump. And so that's why I was like, they're just going to say my milk ducts are clogged or something. And then I'm going to be super ticked. And then they're not going to cover it, So, because we've had that happen in the insurance game. Oh. And so I just put it off. And my son came up and gave me a big bear hug. And I was like, oh, ow, that hurt. And he thought it was my back. And I was like, no, it was my right chest, my right breast. And he's like, that's weird. And so I was relaying that to my workmate, and she's like, you need to go get that checked out. Yeah. And it did. It felt like women who's had kids, it felt like the milk let down, and which was weird. My kid was 16, or no, he was 2006. He's 17 now. But anyways, way done nursing.
Yes.
So yeah, I had to be like, no, I think something's up with, one side definitely started looking different. But it was, my mom, when she had me feel her lump so that I would know, this is what it feels like if you ever feel this. Okay. Didn't feel like that. And then when I did the mammogram, right away, it's kind of funny because now I know the tell signs of the girls that do it, because usually they'll just tell me in years before, when my mom did get breast cancer, that we did have a mammogram, because she's like, okay, all you girls need to get it. Okay, fine. And that's probably one of the other reasons. They're like, you had it when your mom had it, you're fine. And so usually they're like, oh yeah, you're fine. I mean, we're not supposed to say anything, and she didn't say that this time. So I was like, okay. And she's like, yeah, the doctor will call you. And the doctor called me that day and was like, I need you to come in for an ultrasound now. And I was like, oh, okay. I've never had that before.
Did that worry you, or was that?
A little bit. I honestly, every time I went in, I figured I'd have cancer, because my family is full of it. We have the worst gene pool ever. My Nana had stomach cancer. My brother had leukemia. My mom had breast cancer. My aunt had cervical cancer. My other aunt on my dad's side had breast cancer. I mean, really.
Oh my goodness.
A lot of cancer. Yeah. And my brother wasn't supposed to, he only had a 25% chance of living. So we went through all that when I was a kid, and I was like, yep, I'm sure I'm going to get it just one day.
Wow.
And so when,
I mean, that's just, unbelievable.
Yeah, and they said, they're like, we don't know what gene it is, but you obviously have a family gene that mutates. We just haven't discovered it yet.
Too bad it's not like the X-Men mutation.
Right? I know. Then I could get like knives coming out of my hands. That'd be so cool. Oh, yeah, not that gene.
So we have the diagnosis here. I guess how long were you in treatment? I mean, obviously we know the next step once it's diagnosed, you go to treatment. Can you talk a little bit about what that was like for you?
Yeah, so I had HER2 positive, which is an aggressive breast cancer, and it was completely different than what my mom had.
Of course it was.
Of course, right?
Yeah.
I know. And what's scary is the year that I got diagnosed, a lot of women in my town got diagnosed with the exact same cancer.
Really?
Under 40. Yep. And I've talked about, like, I've said things to other people, like, they really need to come down and look at this. And it's just kind of, that's where it goes. That's it. But
wow.
This area, I did do research, and they actually tested the atom bomb around this area way back then. Mm-hmm. You have to do
there's a correlation, but there's not definite proof that it's connected. But yeah,
because we're 40 minutes from Mayo Clinic, right? The best hospital system, whatever.
Yeah.
And Mayo Clinic calls Owatonna, where I live, their bread and butter. One of the doctors kind of let that slip, and I'm like,
oh,
okay.
That's good to know.
Right? So anyway, so they started treatment right away. And again, we were only 40 minutes from Mayo Clinic. So I went there, and they're like, okay, we need to stop it right away. So they started an aggressive chemo treatment where I was on 4 different drugs. Now, the whole, when you see things for breast cancer research, I am so thankful for that, because what actually cured it was they don't call it chemo. It's a protein that attacks that specific HER2 attachment.
Okay.
Right. And so that one drug they discovered 5 years before I got diagnosed, because before that, you were dead. I mean, It was just too aggressive, and they couldn't find something to get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of my drugs, but then they put me on 3 other drugs to kind of make sure they got everything.
Yeah.
Because it was in my lymph nodes.
Okay.
So it was stage 3, and they wanted to just make sure they covered their bases.
Yeah.
And then radiation came. Double mastectomy came after that, then radiation, and then reconstruction.
Okay.
So the whole full gamut. Now with radiation, I had done some research, and I was like, I know I can get 15 visits, because it was all preventative. Because once they took everything, they were like, there's nothing there. This is preventative, the radiation, just to make sure anything we can't see microscopically. I said, okay. I said, I've seen my mom got 25 treatments, and she got burned and stuff. And I was like, my doctor tried to get me in the new proton therapy, but insurance didn't cover it. Oh. So I had to do the old school.
The old school.
And I said, there's this 15 treatment, and I'd rather that, because people are like, I didn't burn. It was way better, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, oh, I'd really like you to get the 25. And I said, well, the 15 and the 25, the research coming back is they're pretty comparable, because you just get a little bit more each time, but you're only under it 15 times. So your exposure is less. And that's what I did. He didn't really want me to. And I was like,
but that's interesting that you bring it up, because you always hear about people needing to know their body, know what they want, and kind of be an advocate for themselves about what they think they know, because your body probably better than the doctor, even though the doctor knows medicine better than you, but you kind of need to be an advocate for your own health.
Yep. And you need to read your records. You need to read the notes that the doctors put on, because I kept seeing preventative, And I was like, the cancer is gone, correct? And he's like, yes, but it was in your lymph nodes. And I said, I get that. I said, but there's no reason to, according to studies, to do the 25. I get burned. Plus, I'm going to have heart problems now because they hit the tip of my lung and my heart with radiation. So there's like all these other side effects. And I said, and the 15 has a lot less side effects.
Yeah.
So I can't stress that enough, do your homework and don't be afraid to be like, no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
A
lot of people are afraid because they're the expert, but you're the expert of you.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I was working throughout my entire time. I would have, my treatment, and then about 3 days later, it was like hell on earth. That's all I could explain. Like, it is a feeling that you just are existing, and you're not really so much in pain, like in someone punching you pain, but you feel so crappy that you just know. I counted the hours because I'm like, it's going to get better at 24 hours. It's going to be even better at 48, and 72, it'll be gone. And I just counted it because I couldn't focus, watch TV. I couldn't read a book, lost concentration. And you're tired, but you aren't tired. And I mean, it's just the worst.
So how long did that last?
That feeling?
Yeah.
3 days. Yep.
3 days. But I mean, how long did that treatment last that made you?
Yeah. So the treatment happened because I got chemo every 3 weeks. So every 3 weeks I would have a bad week and then 2 good weeks.
Yeah.
And then a bad week and then 2 good weeks. And I had to have 6 treatments of those.
Okay.
So, and I found out how much they cost too, which is like crazy. One drug, one infusion, and I had 4 of them. Every time they infused me was $17,000.
Oh my God. That's insane.
I'm like, oh, this is why we have insurance.
Yes, exactly. So now, eventually we'll get to this here. Eventually you wrote some books. Mm-hmm. How did you go from, because all this happened, as we discussed before we hit record, all this happened, the cancer and the treatment happened before you became a published author.
Right.
So how do we transition from cancer treatments, because you said there's a timeline, or there is a direct correlation. So take us to that journey.
So in 2017, I had gotten my reconstructive surgery, and my kids were still relatively young. And one thing that I was very focused on when I was sick is I didn't want them to be afraid that they were going to lose me. Mm-hmm. I knew I was going to come out of it, but of course, kids, they're going to be afraid of anything when their mom or dad is in jeopardy. And so I really kind of got the sense of family is everything. And I had written my first book and shoved it in the drawer when my son was 4.
Okay.
And that was 2008. And so 8 years later, I get sick. And then, that book always kept bugging me because he kept saying, so when is my book going to be done? And I had sent it off to publishers, and of course they're like, oh, great. You don't have an agent? Oh, it's a great story, but we're going to have to pass, all of those. And I kept thinking, I'm like, man, I should just self-publish. I've seen it and whatever. And after getting sick, I wanted to fulfill what I kept telling my son, that, yep, I'm going to do it. Because his name is in it. And I had created this storyline for him, and life gets in the way, unfortunately. And
I know that. Yeah.
Yep. As soon as, you think you're sick and you're like, I'm going to take more time with my family. I'm going to eat healthier. And then
all these grandiose ideas.
Yeah. And then life hits you right in the forehead and says, you're stupid. Like, come on, you need to now go pay for all these bills. So you need to work a ton. And, oh, you're working a ton. You can't really eat healthy. So you're going to, gain the weight that you lost.
Catch 22, literally.
And then with the book, it was like, I just didn't have time. But then the pandemic hit, and I was forced to start thinking about that again. Mm-hmm. And I was forced to think back when I was sick and I was laying there trying to hide that I was sick. I still did everything because I did not want my kids to be afraid, but man, inside I was feeling like blah. But he's like, okay, let's go.
Happy face.
Yep. I was like, I wanted them to see this book and be like, hey, my mom did that. And to know that I wanted to do this, I said I was going to do this. And they got, the reality that we never know what life's going to bring us. I mean, you can get hit by a bus tomorrow, as the saying goes. So why am I not just doing it? And that's when I just bit the bullet.
Yeah. So, and then with this, I mean, are these self-published or are these traditionally published?
These are self-published. Okay. Yep.
Because self-publishing nowadays is a lot different than in 2008, where it really wasn't a thing. It was more vanity publishing then, but it's gotten more professional with self-publishing now, where you can control everything you do, and you have. I mean, it's totally different. And self-publishing, also known as indie publishing.
Yep.
So was this therapeutic for you to get this done? Was this?
Yes, very much.
Could you talk a little bit about how that helped you and something like this, maybe not writing, but something else, creativity or creative process that could help other people, right?
Exactly. That, the one huge thing that's out there for therapies is journaling, right? And this was kind of my way of journaling. When you're writing, you're slowing down. You're in the present moment, and your brain is working, is getting creative. You're using all those synapses, which then create, great dopamine and those feel-good hormones. And you're grounded. It's not like you're watching a TV and you just feel unfulfilled afterwards. Even a good movie. So, it's like, this is a tangible thing that I'm doing. I can see the product result, and then I can see my family, their look and feeling proud that I did this. The first version of my book, I'm embarrassed because I've redone it all. And yet my family loves that one. Because that was the one that I was like, I'm just going to do this.
Yeah. And with every book that you write, you improve your writing skills and abilities. And if I would read my first article as a journalist from 22 years ago, I would be mortified. I would never try to look at reading that again. It was like cringe.
Yeah.
Oh, it's like, how do I have a 5-sentence lead? Oh, how did my editor let that go? But anyway, so. Yeah. But this is more like, I mean, the therapy, it's therapeutic. It's kind of like seeing a psychologist or a psychiatrist, but you're your own psychiatrist in a way, because you're getting those interpersonal thoughts out. And I guess you can be more honest if you know that it's just going to be private. It's just going to be you. Does that help with that?
Oh, definitely. And I've branched out, and I do have a book that I've been writing on my life, and that is super therapeutic, because it's kind of, you're getting it out, you're getting it on paper, and then you can leave it on paper, and it not constantly be a nagging, hanging over you feeling, but it's like it's all over here, and this is a story, and this is what I went through, but you're not letting it affect you anymore. Yeah. So it's pretty powerful, I will have to say.
And it can be left on the page for your eyes only, or I mean, a lot of people don't. I guess since it's super personal, you think it's only happening to you, but it really isn't, and it could be therapeutic for some other people if you choose to go to publish that and put that out in the world. But again, you don't have to, because it's all about you trying to get healthy.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And there's also a thing called pen names, so you'll never know whether that book comes out or not.
Changing the name to protect the innocent.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So talk a little bit about these books here, the Logan Scott Files.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that name. Is your son's is Logan Scott?
Yes.
That's a great name.
And so both kids loved to read when they were little, and they would zoom through books. And so of course we didn't have a book one night, and and this was before, you can just go onto Kindle and download. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, fine, I'll make up a story. And it was this super cool kid named Logan Scott. And of course my 4-year-old's like, oh, that's me. And I was like, and you are a super finder. You can find anything lost. And there's a secret task force in town that they got wind of your super talent, and they want you to work for them. And so the first story is about a spoiled brat gone missing. And Logan is like, okay, fine. I'll help you guys. And of course, there's twists and turns in the spoiled brat. Things aren't always what they seem. And Logan, there's humor in it. Logan finds out that he knows the spoiled brat, and he does not want her to know he's there. So he gets super cool gadgets from the spy team or the secret task force. And one of them is a aerosol can that you spray all over your body, and for 1 minute you're invisible. And so this really helps him when he has to kind of motivate the spoiled brat to come out of hiding. And another one is he has a key, and when you press the button on the key, a laser shoots out, and it can actually cut cement. Yes, and he has super gloves, so his hands won't get burned. And one of the teachers that was reading this to the class afterwards, she's like, I had quite a few kids come up to me and be like, are those tools real? Like they wanted to get them. I was like, oh, maybe.
So what age group is this for?
It is to be read to, first grade. And then once they get a little more independent, it's after picture books. It does have illustrations in it, like every chapter, just a few, but more so 3rd to 5th grade reading on their own.
So right below middle grade.
Yep.
Okay. I can imagine with everything that's going on in your life, you are overwhelmed.
A little bit, yeah.
Can you talk about what you did or what was helped, or what did you do to kind of decrease that overwhelming feeling, or I guess what did you do to help that?
I have a saying that I like to tell other people that are going crazy, is just keep swimming, because.
All right, Dory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was through that movie that I found out sharks never stop swimming, because then they will sink to the bottom. And so you have to constantly be swimming so that you don't sink. And that's really my motto, is you take it minute by minute, step by step, day by day. Once you get to the next day, you're like, whew, got through that day. And maybe it's a week. Oh, once this week is done, I'm going to be okay. And then sickness. Once this year is done, everyone kept telling me it's going to be a year until you are fully back. And I'm like, you don't know me. And wouldn't you know, it was a year, And I mean, I'm the type that when I got sick, I had to stay home for a little bit. And those weeks I was so bored, even though I was sick, I ended up putting a hammer through a wall, because I'm like, you know what? This wall needs to go. This needs to be a little more open. And so I was like, I'll just do it because I'm home and I need to be doing something. So my husband came home to that. He never knew what he was coming home to. So
God help your husband.
Oh yeah, he's like, oh, I guess we're opening this wall, huh?
Okay, we're doing this now. Right.
So I really do tell people that it's very easy to get caught up in the moment, and you feel like you're drowning, and you're like, I'm not going to be able to do this. I can't do this. And that's when panic attacks start coming up and things like that, that if you have the outlook that this is a moment in time, it will be over at some point. And when it's over, I'll have learned, whether it's good or bad, from that experience. And I will be on to another experience. And so that's really helped me. I mean, currently we moved into my parents' basement apartment so they could stay at home because my dad has Alzheimer's. So I'm his full-time caregiver.
Okay.
And so it's like this. I mean, friends of mine are always like, this doesn't stop for you, huh?
It can be very stressful.
Yeah. But I tell people, I'm like, you just have to keep swimming. It will be okay. And if it gets to the point, it has gotten to the point where I'm just like, just stop. That's when I have to kind of do a recheck, a self-evaluation, like, okay, what am I doing where I'm feeling like I'm drowning and I'm not swimming? And usually I have to step back from maybe something I said yes to and I shouldn't have.
I have that problem.
Yeah.
Except I don't step back.
And for years and years, I didn't either. And then after I was sick, I kind of got a change that I was like, when I'm getting to the point, my body will tell me, because I will actually be on the ground in pain because I have IBS, and stress induces your colon to spasm.
Oh my goodness.
And it'll spasm shut.
Oh.
And I've not been knocked out.
How do you relieve that stress? How do you de-stress?
For me, it is just staying really home, slowing everything down. It's kind of like a slow-mo video, and you're like, okay, things are getting out of control, and I need to just come on down. And then I need to not do anything. And maybe it's read a book, maybe it's write, maybe it's coloring. I really love to color.
Well, yeah, they have adult coloring books that my wife loves those. She needs to get back into the habit of those, but she's a little stressed out because she's a school teacher, so they have their own little pressures. But yeah, she loved to do those.
Yep, and getting outdoors. The outdoors is so good. Digging in the dirt is actually, they've found studies how it is a stress reliever.
Really?
Yep, the actual digging in the soil. I read that and I was like, oh, that makes so much sense, because I am happy even just putting plants in pots. Like, it makes me feel so like really, calm. And I was like, why is that? And that's what I kind of did was, okay, I need to find some calming techniques. I found out that floating, say you go to your pool, in your community, or the Y, floating releases the same endorphins that Prozac does, or is made to do.
Really?
Yes. And I was like, that is so funny, because I love water. I came from Boston area, and I love the ocean.
Yeah.
And I love swimming. And I always was so happy when I was around water, whether it was lakes, whether it was the beach. It was like my happy place.
Okay.
But actually, there was a reason for that, like a scientific reason. When you float, it releases, I can't remember all the medical terminology of what that does in your body, but it basically said that, it releases the same thing that when they give you Prozac, that's what's supposed to happen, is those serotonins.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's like all those stuff. And for me, my faith is huge. And so prayer, again, just stopping and kind of grounding yourself again.
Yeah.
has
Well, I mean, it's the cliche of stop and smell the roses. I mean, it's cliche, but it's cliche
so
for a
true.
reason.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, it's just
Exactly.
okay. So you just gotta physically and purposefully
Yes.
slow yourself down.
Because no one else will do it for you.
Yeah.
And when people do try to do it to you, then you're like, step back, Jack. I can handle this. Because then you get defensive and then you go even more.
Yeah.
So it's like you have to just be like, you know what? It's okay to know my limits. That doesn't make me weak. That actually makes me stronger, and that was a hard thing to come to. Mm-hmm. That being modest and knowing your own limits is a strength. And I always thought before that it was a weakness, but when life slaps you down and wants to keep you down, mm-hmm. that's when you're like, no, I'm not going to stay down here. What do I need to do to get back up?
Wow. All right. Well, great. Well, Danielle Spaar, I appreciate. I'll put all the links to all your books down in the show notes and some other things for you, and also some cancer facts so people can be aware of what mm-hmm. they need to be learning and what they need to be aware of, and listen to your body. You know it best. You're the expert of you.
So, yes, exactly.
But great. Well, thank you very much for being on my podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.